She walks into the courtroom wearing a slight smile. 17-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick looks almost relaxed as she takes her seat at the defense table. Her lawyers have prepared her well. They've lined up witnesses, pastors, teachers, guardians, all ready to vouch for her character. She's never been in trouble before. She's a good kid who goes to church. Surely the judge will grant bond. But what Sarah doesn't know yet is that the people she thought would support her are about to say something very different. In just a few hours, her confident expression will completely disappear. This is the story of a double murder in suburban Georgia. A teenager accused of killing her own parents, and the moment in court when everything fell apart. If you're hearing about this case for the first time, buckle up. Because what happened on February 20th, 2025, and what was revealed in that courtroom will challenge everything you think you know about family, loyalty, and guilt. Let's start at the beginning. It's early morning on Thursday, February 20th, 2025. The address is on Tyus Road in Carrollton, Georgia, a quiet wooded area about 45 miles west of Atlanta. Around 7:15 a.m., a 5-year-old girl wakes up in her bedroom. She's hungry, maybe looking for breakfast. She walks down the hallway toward her parents' room. When she opens the door, she finds them. Her father, 45-year-old James Brock, and her mother, 41-year-old Kristen Brock, are lying on the floor. There's blood everywhere. The little girl, we'll call her Jay to protect her identity, starts screaming. Her older half-sister, 17-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick, hears the screams and rushes into the room. She sees what Jay sees. Sarah tries to calm her down, but it's impossible. The child is hysterical, traumatized by a scene no 5-year-old should ever witness. Sarah makes the call to 911. Police arrive within minutes. Multiple patrol cars pull up to the house. Officers enter to find the couple dead in their bedroom, both suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. But here's what immediately catches their attention. There's no sign of forced entry. No broken windows. No kicked-in doors. The house looks completely normal from the outside. This was an inside job. Whoever killed James and Kristen Brock knew them. Knew when they slept. Knew the layout of the house. Knew exactly where to find them. Before we continue with Sarah's story, I need to ask for your help with something important. If this case has already caught your attention, please hit that like button right now. It tells YouTube to share this investigation with more people who might recognize warning signs in their own communities. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. This channel exists to examine cases where children needed protection but didn't get it. Every story I cover isn't just about tragedy. It's about learning to recognize dangerous situations before it's too late. In the comments, tell me your city and what time you're watching. This helps me understand when to publish these investigations so they reach the maximum number of people who need to see them. Now, I also want to tell you about something special. Everyone asks the same question when we study cases like these. What creates a person capable of this? What breaks in someone's mind that allows them to commit unthinkable acts? I've just released a new book that explores exactly that question. It's called How Ed Gein's Mother Created a Monster, What Netflix Didn't Show You. This isn't your typical true crime book. It examines the religious trauma and psychological conditioning that transformed a vulnerable child into one of history's most notorious killers. Netflix told you what Ed Gein did. My book reveals how his mother made him that way. Here's the thing. This book isn't for sale. It's valued at $24.99, but I'm offering it as a thank you for supporting this channel's mission. You can contribute whatever amount feels right to you through the Super Thanks button below this video or by joining our membership community. Your support, whether it's through Super Thanks, membership, or simply sharing these videos, allows me to continue investigating cases like Sarah's, to ask the hard questions, to examine what went wrong, to hopefully prevent the next tragedy. Click that Super Thanks button or join as a member, and you'll get immediate access to How Ed Gein's Mother Created a Monster. And please share this video. Every share could reach someone who needs to understand these warning signs. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring about these stories. Now, let's get back to what investigators discovered about Sarah Grace Patrick. To understand what happened, you need to know who James and Kristen were. Kristen had been married before. Her first marriage ended in divorce in 2018, and that split was messy. Court documents from the custody battle mention substance abuse issues. According to the filings, Kristen and her then-boyfriend, who happened to be James Brock, struggled to provide a stable, drug-free environment for the children. But the couple claimed they'd turned their lives around. They got clean, found religion, and became active members of Catalyst Church in Carrollton. They attended services regularly, volunteered, and seemed genuinely devoted to their faith. In December 2023, after 10 years together, James and Kristen finally got married. It was a blended family. Sarah and her brother were from Kristen's first marriage. Little Jay was James's daughter from a previous relationship. From the outside, they looked like they'd overcome their past and built something stable. But there was something else you need to know about James. Something medical that becomes crucial later in this story. James Brock had severe heart problems. His heart was failing, and doctors had implanted something called an LVAD device, a left ventricular assist device. It's essentially a mechanical pump that keeps a failing heart beating. The device runs on battery power and is surgically attached to the patient's chest. It's a last resort, something you get while waiting for a heart transplant. James had nearly died in 2021. Kristen posted on Facebook begging for prayers. He survived that crisis, but his health remained fragile. He was living on borrowed time, dependent on that machine to keep him alive. Remember that detail, the LVAD device. It's going to matter. In the immediate aftermath of the murders, the priority was the children. Where would they go? Who would take care of them? A woman named Caitlin O'Keefe stepped forward. She'd been friends with Sarah's biological father years ago, before he and Kristen divorced. She agreed to take both Sarah and Jay into her home temporarily while the investigation unfolded. Within days, Sarah returned to school. Teachers later reported that she seemed remarkably composed, almost eerily calm for someone who'd just lost both parents. But everyone grieves differently, right? Maybe she was in shock. Maybe she was compartmentalizing. The community rallied around the family. Catalyst Church held a memorial service. Friends filled the pews. Family members gave tearful tributes. James's adult son from his first marriage spoke through sobs, barely able to get the words out. Then Sarah took the pulpit. She stood at the podium and delivered a eulogy. Her voice was steady, controlled. She thanked James for being a good stepfather, mentioned that his heart would finally be healed in heaven, and encouraged people to listen to their loved ones because you never know when they'll be gone. Watch the footage from that service and you'll notice something. Everyone else who speaks is breaking down, voices cracking, tears streaming, raw emotion pouring out. Sarah? No tears. Her delivery is almost too polished, too rehearsed. She sounds like she's reading from a script. Some people in attendance noticed. They whispered about it afterward. Others defended her. Everyone processes grief differently, they said. She's probably still in shock. But investigators were starting to notice other things too, things that didn't add up. Like most teenagers, Sarah had social media accounts. She spent hours on TikTok, scrolling through videos, following trends. But Sarah had a particular interest: true crime content. She watched video after video about murder cases, criminal investigations, forensic analysis, interrogation techniques. She knew the genre inside and out. She understood how detectives work, what evidence matters, how cases get solved. But after her parents died, Sarah started doing something strange, something that would eventually catch investigators' attention and become a key piece of evidence against her. She started messaging true crime influencers. Not just one or two, multiple creators across different platforms: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. She sent dozens of messages, all with the same basic request. She wanted them to cover her parents' case. One creator received this message: "Hey, I was wondering if you would be able to cover my parents' murder case. It's super interesting and I think your audience would love it." Read that again. Super interesting. Those were her words about her own parents' deaths, the people who raised her, who fed her, who gave her a home. The creator who received that message was deeply disturbed. This wasn't normal grief. This was someone treating their parents' murders like content, like entertainment, like a story to be packaged and consumed. The creator immediately reported it to authorities and turned over screenshots of the conversation. Other influencers came forward with similar messages. Sarah had been systematically reaching out, almost like a PR campaign, trying to get coverage for the case. Now, the defense would later argue that Sarah was just trying to process her grief in a familiar way. True crime content was something she connected with, so maybe she was seeking answers through those channels. But prosecutors saw it differently. To them, this looked like damage control. Someone trying to manage the narrative before charges were even filed. Someone who understood how public opinion works and wanted to shape the story. It suggested awareness, calculation, an understanding of how these cases play out in the media. As investigators pieced together the timeline of that night, they interviewed Sarah extensively about what she heard and saw. Sarah told them she'd gone to bed around midnight on February 19th. She claimed she slept through the entire incident and didn't hear anything unusual until her little sister's screams woke her up in the morning. But there was a problem with her story. A major contradiction that the defense couldn't explain away. Remember James's LVAD device? That mechanical heart pump keeping him alive? Those devices have built-in alarms, critical safety features that activate when something goes wrong. When the battery disconnects, when there's internal bleeding, when cardiac arrest occurs, the alarm sounds. And these alarms are loud. They start at a moderate volume, then escalate, becoming more urgent and more insistent. They're designed to be impossible to ignore. According to Sarah's own statement to police, she heard the LVAD alarm sometime between 11:40 and 11:50 p.m., just 10 to 20 minutes before she claimed she fell asleep. Let that sink in. She heard a critical medical alarm from her stepfather's life-saving device, a device that only alarms when something is seriously wrong, and she didn't get up to check on him, didn't alert her mother, didn't call for help, she just went to sleep. But here's where it gets worse. Sarah claims she heard that alarm clearly enough to remember it and mention it specifically in her police statement. Yet she says she didn't hear any gunshots. Multiple gunshots fired inside the same house, just down the hallway from her bedroom. The defense tried to explain this away. Teenagers sleep heavily, they argued. Their circadian rhythms are different. She was exhausted from the day. It's scientifically possible she slept through gunfire. But investigators weren't buying it. The contradiction was too glaring. She heard a medical alarm, but not gunshots. She heard a beeping sound, but not multiple rounds being fired. The evidence was starting to suggest something else entirely, that Sarah knew exactly what was happening that night because she was the one making it happen. Crime scene analysts spent days processing the Brock house. Every surface was dusted for fingerprints, every fiber collected, every drop of blood cataloged and analyzed. The forensic evidence painted a disturbing picture. Both victims had been shot multiple times at extremely close range while they slept. The shooter stood right next to the bed, aimed down, and fired. James and Kristen never had a chance to defend themselves. There were no defensive wounds, no signs they'd woken up or tried to fight back. The bedroom was relatively undisturbed, the comforters still mostly in place, pillows where they should be. Death came silently in the night. Downstairs, everything looked normal. The kitchen was clean, the living room untouched. Nothing out of place. But upstairs in that bedroom, 2 lives had ended with cold, calculated precision. Investigators seized Sarah's electronic devices immediately, her phone, computer, tablet, before she had time to delete anything. Digital forensics experts went through everything. Search history, text messages, social media accounts, deleted files. Modern digital forensics can recover almost anything. Even data that's been wiped multiple times can often be retrieved. While authorities haven't publicly disclosed everything they found, court documents suggest there were incriminating searches made in the weeks before the murders. Searches about guns, forensics, police investigation timelines. Text messages to friends expressing anger and resentment toward her parents. Messages that painted a picture of escalating tension. I wish they were dead. I can't wait until they're gone. They don't deserve to be parents. Every digital breadcrumb led investigators closer to the same conclusion. But there was one crucial piece of evidence investigators couldn't find: the murder weapon. Despite an extensive search of the property, the gun was never recovered. Police combed through every room in the house. They searched the yard inch by inch. They explored nearby woods with cadaver dogs and metal detectors. They checked drainage ditches, storm sewers, local ponds. Nothing. And here's the thing. No one in the household owned a registered firearm. County records showed no guns registered to James Brock, none to Kristen. No ammunition in the house, no gun safe. No indication anyone in that family had ever legally owned a weapon. So where did the gun come from? The most likely scenario is that Sarah obtained it from an outside source. Maybe someone at school, a friend of a friend, someone selling guns illegally. Georgia's gun laws allow private sales without background checks. It's entirely possible to acquire a firearm with cash, no records, no paper trail. After the murders, she would have disposed of it. Maybe threw it in a river, maybe buried it deep in the woods, maybe returned it to whoever provided it. Or maybe, and this is what investigators suspect, police did eventually recover the weapon and found her fingerprints or DNA linking her to it. That would explain the confidence prosecutors had in pressing charges. But those details remain sealed, protected until trial. For nearly 4 months, the case went quiet. Media attention faded. Sarah continued living with her guardian, attending school, maintaining a normal routine. Then, on July 1, 2025, the Carroll County Sheriff's Office submitted an arrest warrant for Sarah Grace Patrick. The charges? 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault. On July 8th, Sarah turned herself in. Her biological father drove her to the police station. She was booked, fingerprinted, photographed, and processed. Because of the severity of the crimes and the evidence against her, prosecutors announced she would be charged as an adult. This was a critical decision. It meant Sarah would face adult penalties if convicted. Adult prison, adult sentencing guidelines, the full weight of the justice system. 2 people had been murdered in their sleep, shot multiple times with no mercy shown. The state wasn't taking this lightly. The charges eventually escalated to 8 counts total: 2 counts of malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, and 2 counts of possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. If convicted on all counts, Sarah could spend the rest of her life in prison. Now came the bond hearing, the moment that would determine whether Sarah would await trial in jail or at home under supervision. And this is where we return to that confident smile from the beginning. Sarah's defense team had prepared carefully for this hearing. They'd assembled a lineup of character witnesses, people who knew Sarah well and could testify to her good character, her lack of criminal history, her ties to the community. Their strategy was clear: paint Sarah as a good kid who couldn't possibly be a danger to society. Show the judge that she deserved a chance to await trial at home with family support. The first witness was Pastor Ben Bonner from Catalyst Church. He'd known the family for about a year, watched them grow in their faith, seen their transformation. Pastor Bonner testified that Sarah had been baptized shortly after starting to attend the church. She came to services regularly, not just Sundays, but during the week too. She asked questions, served in various capacities, invited others. She and her family often traveled over an hour just to attend services. Even after the murders, even from jail, Sarah had called Pastor Bonner multiple times asking him to pray with her. Her biological father had also become active in the church and was recently baptized. If the court sees fit to grant Sarah grace bond, the pastor testified, we would gladly continue to walk alongside her. We believe having her with her family and church community is an important part of her support system. Next came Caitlin O'Keefe, the guardian who'd taken Sarah in after the tragedy. When asked if she'd had any disciplinary problems with Sarah, O'Keefe was emphatic. Not even one, honestly. I've had some teenagers who gave me a hard time, and Sarah was a pleasure. She was easy. O'Keefe testified that she'd seen no indication Sarah could do what she was accused of. Sarah helped with dinner, played with the younger kids, did her homework without being asked. She seemed like any other teenager trying to cope with a terrible tragedy. Teachers testified about Sarah's classroom behavior. She was quiet, attentive, turned in assignments on time, participated in discussions, helped other students. No disciplinary issues, no concerning behavior. Nothing that suggested violence. Friends described normal teenage activities. Sleepovers, study sessions, shopping, movies. Nothing raised any red flags. The defense was building momentum. The testimony seemed genuinely heartfelt. These weren't people who'd been paid to lie. They genuinely believed in Sarah's innocence. Sarah sat at the defense table looking cautiously optimistic. Maybe this would work. Maybe she'd get to go home. The judge listened intently, taking notes, considering every word, and then everything changed. The prosecution called Kim Bowling to the stand. Kim was James Brock's sister, the victim's family, and she wasn't here to defend Sarah. She was here to speak for her dead brother and sister-in-law. The moment Kim began speaking, the entire tone of the courtroom shifted. "My name is Kim Bowling, and I'm Jamie's sister," she began, her voice already breaking. "I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Since this tragic day my brother Jamie and his wife Kristen were taken from us, I have become their voice as they no longer have one." Kim struggled to get the words out. Tears streamed down her face. This wasn't rehearsed testimony. This was raw, visceral grief. "I would like to share how this brutal tragedy has affected me. I not only lost my brother but also my sister-in-law in the most horrific way imaginable." She described lying awake at night, haunted by thoughts of what her brother experienced in his final moments. The terror, the realization of what was happening, the fact that someone they trusted had entered their room with a gun. She talked about James not just as a victim, but as a person. A brother who called her weakly, an uncle who spoiled his nieces and nephews, a man who fought so hard to stay alive despite his failing heart, who endured surgery and pain and medical interventions because he wanted to live. He wanted to see his kids grow up. He wanted that heart transplant. He wanted more time. With all of this in mind, I am deeply concerned about Jay's safety should the defendant be released on bond. Kim begged the judge to deny bond, to keep Sarah locked up, to protect the community, to ensure justice for her brother and Kristen. Her voice grew stronger as she spoke, anger mixing with grief. "Don't let her out, please, for my brother, for Kristen, for those babies she left behind, for Jay who found them, who will carry that image forever." But perhaps the most devastating testimony came next. James's 12-year-old son, Jaden, was too young to testify in person, but his statement was read aloud by a family friend named Kelly Brown. "My name is Jaden Brock, and I am 12 years old. I wanted to talk today because my dad and stepmom were shot and killed. I miss him every day." The courtroom was silent. "What makes me more sad is I trusted Sarah and I loved her like a sister. Why would she do this to me, and why would she hurt everyone like this?" The pain in those words was unbearable. A child trying to understand why someone he loved and trusted would destroy his family. "I don't understand why someone would do this, but I know it is not right." Look at Sarah during this moment in the hearing. That confident smile from the beginning. Gone. Completely vanished. She stared down at the defense table, wouldn't make eye contact with anyone. The contrast couldn't have been starker. On one side, character witnesses speaking about potential and redemption. On the other, devastated family members speaking about trauma and loss in a 5-year-old child who would never be the same. After all the testimony concluded, the judge had to make his decision. He acknowledged that Sarah had no prior criminal history. He acknowledged the testimony from the pastor, the guardian, the teachers. He acknowledged that she had community support. But then he addressed the other side. Listening to the witnesses here, the judge said, "If I weigh these witnesses' testimonies, and I weigh what I hear today, I believe those closest, and I say closest in family relationship, expressed that they had vast concerns that she would have the ability to flee, that she would be a danger to the community, that she would be a danger to them." The judge found that the state had met its burden of proof. The evidence suggested Sarah posed a risk. "Miss Patrick, because of that, I'm bound by the law, and I do not believe that you would be a proper candidate for bond at this time." Bond denied. Sarah would remain in Carroll County Jail until trial. No release, no house arrest, no ankle monitor, full detention. The courtroom erupted in mixed reactions. Family members of the victims nodded, some crying with relief. Sarah's supporters looked devastated. Sarah herself showed no emotion, just sat there staring straight ahead. So, where does this case stand now? Sarah Grace Patrick remains in custody, awaiting trial on 8 felony counts. The trial date hasn't been set yet, but when it happens, we'll finally hear all the evidence prosecutors have been holding back, because there's more. Court filings suggest additional evidence was discovered during forensic analysis of Sarah's devices, evidence that remains sealed until trial. Prosecutors have described it as damaging. The motive also remains somewhat unclear. Was this about family tensions? Sarah wanted to live with her biological father instead of with her mother and stepfather. A neighbor mentioned that Kristen had confided about having trouble with Sarah. Behavioral issues, defiance, escalating arguments. Was it about resentment? About feeling controlled or misunderstood? Or was it something darker that we don't know about yet? Prosecutors have also indicated that additional arrests may be made in connection with these murders. If Sarah obtained the gun from someone else, that person could face charges as an accessory. This case presents 2 completely different versions of the same person. One, Sarah Grace Patrick, is a reformed teenager, devoted to her church, kind to the children in her guardian's care, someone who made a terrible mistake but deserves a chance at rehabilitation. The other, Sarah Grace Patrick, is a calculated killer who shot her parents while they slept, disposed of the evidence, delivered a rehearsed eulogy without shedding a tear, and then reached out to true crime influencers to manage her public image. Which version is real? That's what a jury will eventually have to decide. What we do know is this: 2 people are dead. A 5-year-old child is traumatized. A 12-year-old boy has lost his father. Multiple families have been destroyed. And at the center of it all is a 17-year-old girl who walked into a bond hearing, smiling, thinking the people she knew would support her, until they spoke. Justice for James and Kristen Brock isn't just about legal proceedings. It's about ensuring that the surviving children, Jay and Jaden and Sarah's own brother, get the support and healing they need to move forward. What do you think happened that night? Do you believe Sarah is guilty, or is there more to this story than we know? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, but remember to be respectful. There are real victims and real families involved in this case. If you want to follow this case as it develops and get updates when the trial begins, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and hit that notification bell. I'll link to other similar cases in the description if you want to learn more about how investigators solve crimes like these. And above all, remember the victims. James Brock, who fought so hard to stay alive for his children. Kristen Brock, who worked to turn her life around. And the children left behind who will carry this trauma for the rest of their lives. Thank you for watching. Up here is another case you will be interested in.